What if I told you that being absolutely quiet on the riverbank is the biggest lie in fishing history? We have all been taught that fish demand perfect silence, and that a single snapped twig will ruin your entire day on the water. But today, I am going to show you why fishing next to a screaming, noisy highway bridge might just be the best decision you make all season. I promise you a completely unexpected truth that will make you rethink everything you know about finding the perfect fishing spot. We are going to uncover exactly why you are getting skunked at that quiet, beautiful lake, while other guys are pulling monsters out of the concrete jungle. So, let me ask you right now to provoke some thoughts. Do you still believe that fish need peace and quiet to bite? Or are you bold enough to fish in the roaring noise? Let us argue about it in the comments below. This topic is incredibly important because it challenges the very foundation of how we were taught to fish. We all grew up hearing our grandfathers say, "Hush, you are going to scare the fish away." Because of this deeply rooted belief, millions of anglers do the exact same thing every single weekend. They pack their trucks, drive miles away from the city, and spend hours searching for untouched, silent nature. They do this year after year, convinced that escaping the urban noise is the only way to catch fish. We project our own human desire for a peaceful escape onto the fish, assuming they hate the noise just as much as we do. But this habit of chasing silence creates a massive blind spot, causing anglers to completely ignore the most productive, food-rich, and shelter-heavy environments right in their own backyards. Let us picture a classic Saturday morning. You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, pour a hot thermos of coffee, and drive 2 hours out of town. You are looking for that perfect, untouched piece of nature. The water is like glass. The birds are barely waking up. It is so quiet you can hear your own heart beating in your chest. You set up your chair, bait your hook, and make that first smooth cast. Then, you sit. You sit for 1 hour. You sit for 2 hours. Not a single bite. You start changing baits, whispering to your buddy so you do not scare the fish. Our grandfathers always told us that fish demand absolute silence. If you snap a twig on the bank, the fishing is ruined for the day. So you sit there in the beautiful, silent nature, completely skunked. Does this sound familiar to you? We have all been there, doing exactly the same thing for years, believing that fish only live where humans do not. But what if the perfect fishing spot is not a silent, hidden lake? What if it is the loudest, ugliest place in your city? Let us explore why leaving the quiet woods might be your best move. Let us talk about the exact opposite scenario. Imagine standing on a muddy bank, right next to a massive, roaring highway bridge. 18-wheeler trucks are slamming over the expansion joints above your head. The sound is deafening. Boom, boom, boom. The concrete vibrates under your boots. Cars are honking, sirens are wailing in the distance, and the smell of exhaust mixes with the river mud. Any traditional fisherman would take one look at this spot and laugh in your face. They would say you are completely crazy to even wet a line here. After all, if a snapped twig spooks a bass in a quiet pond, surely a roaring diesel engine will send every fish scattering for miles. Right? Wrong. This is the biggest mental block we face as anglers. We project our own desire for peace and quiet onto the fish. We go fishing to escape the noisy city, so we assume the fish want to escape it too. But fish do not have a mortgage. They do not get stressed by traffic jams. They only care about 3 things: food, shelter, and oxygen. And surprisingly, that ugly, deafening concrete structure provides all 3 in massive amounts. Let us break down the science of sound and why the noise does not matter here. Yes, fish have a lateral line. Yes, they are highly sensitive to vibrations in the water. In a quiet, shallow pond, a sudden splash or a heavy footstep is an alarm bell. It means a predator is near. The fish panic and shut down. But under a highway bridge, the rules are completely different. The noise from the traffic is constant. It never stops. Because it is continuous, it becomes background noise. It is white noise to the fish. They are born into it, they grow up in it, and they are completely used to it. In fact, this constant rumble works to your advantage. Because the water is already vibrating with the sound of trucks and cars, the splash of your lure entering the water is completely masked. You can cast a heavy bait right on top of a fish, and they will not even flinch. You can walk heavily on the bank, drop your tackle box, or even talk at full volume to your fishing buddy. The fish do not care. You have the ultimate cover. You are a stealth ninja operating in the middle of a heavy metal concert. Now, let us look at the structure itself. A bridge is not just a road over water. It is a massive, man-made reef. Think about the concrete pillars holding up that highway. These pillars plunge deep into the riverbed. For a fish, a concrete pillar is the ultimate luxury apartment. It breaks the current, creating a resting spot on the downstream side. A fish can sit right behind that pillar, expending zero energy while the river rushes past. This is the perfect ambush point. When the current sweeps a wounded baitfish, a worm or a bug downstream, the predator just waits behind the concrete block. As soon as the food drifts by, bam! The fish darts out, grabs the meal, and slides right back into the resting zone. It is essentially a conveyor belt of free food. If you are fishing in a natural river, with soft banks and no structure, the fish are scattered. You have to hunt for them. But a bridge pillar concentrates the fish in one specific, predictable location. You do not have to guess where they are hiding. The concrete tells you exactly where to cast your line every single time. Let us dive deeper into the food chain that exists around these ugly concrete giants. It is not just about the current bringing food. The bridge itself generates food. Look up at the underside of the highway. It is covered in spiders, insects, and bird nests. Pigeons and swallows build their homes in the steel beams. When a strong wind blows, or when a massive truck rattles the bridge, what happens? Bugs, grubs, and sometimes even small birds fall directly into the water below. It is a natural chum line raining from the sky. The fish know this. The smart, older, bigger fish figure out that the area directly under the bridge is a high-percentage feeding zone. Bluegill and small baitfish gather to eat the falling insects. And where the small fish gather, the big predators follow. You have created an entire, thriving ecosystem in the shadow of a traffic jam. While the guy at the quiet, beautiful lake is trying to trick a lone, starving fish into biting a fake worm, you are casting directly into a heavily populated active dining room. The fish here are actively looking up, waiting for the next meal to drop. Another massive advantage of the highway bridge is temperature control. Fish are cold-blooded creatures. Their entire mood, appetite, and behavior are dictated by the temperature of the water. During the boiling hot days of summer, a shallow, quiet lake turns into a hot tub. The oxygen levels drop, the water gets stagnant, and the fish become sluggish. They go deep and refuse to eat. But a massive concrete bridge creates a permanent, deep shadow. That shadow blocks the blazing sun, keeping the water underneath significantly cooler than the rest of the river. Cool water holds more oxygen. When you combine cooler temperatures, higher oxygen, and the natural flow of the river squeezing between the pillars, you get an oasis of highly active fish. During a July heat wave, when every other fisherman is sitting on a boat sweating and complaining that the fish have closed their mouths, you can be standing in the cool shade of a highway overpass, catching fish after fish. The bridge acts as a giant climate control system, making it the most comfortable place for a fish to be when the weather outside gets extreme. Let us talk about the visual aspect of the water around a bridge. When they built that highway, they had to move earth, pour concrete, and lay down massive rocks called riprap to stop erosion. This creates a highly complex bottom structure. It is not just a flat, muddy bottom. It is a maze of boulders, broken concrete chunks, and old construction debris. To you, it looks like a messy junkyard. To a bass or a catfish, it is a five-star hotel. These rocks provide millions of tiny crevices for crawfish to hide in. Minnows use the rocks to escape the current, and the big predators patrol the edges of these rocks like guards. If you tie on a crankbait or a heavy jig and bounce it along that rocky, uneven bottom, you are mimicking exactly what the fish are looking for. Yes, you will lose a few lures to the snags. Fishing in heavy structure always comes with a price, but the reward is worth it. The biggest, oldest fish in the river do not roam the open water. They claim the best, most secure hiding spots, and the riprap under a bridge is prime real estate for giant fish. Picture this specific scenario in your mind. It is mid-afternoon. The traffic above is at its absolute peak. You walk down the steep, rocky bank under the bridge. A guy walks past you on the walking trail above, carrying a briefcase. He looks at you holding a fishing rod and shakes his head. He thinks you are wasting your time. You ignore him. You tie on a deep diving crankbait. You aim your cast right at the seam where the fast water meets the slow water behind the third concrete pillar. You let the lure fly. It lands with a heavy splash that nobody hears because a diesel truck just blasted its horn above. You start reeling. You feel the lure bouncing off the submerged rocks. Bump, bump, bump. You pause. The lure floats up just a tiny bit. Suddenly the rod is nearly ripped out of your hands. The line goes incredibly tight. The tip of your rod bends aggressively toward the water. You set the hook hard. It feels like you just snagged a passing submarine. The drag on your reel starts screaming over the sound of the traffic. The guy with the briefcase stops walking and stares in absolute shock. Fighting a fish in this environment is a completely different game than fighting one in an open lake. You cannot just let the fish run wherever it wants. You are dealing with concrete pylons, rusty shopping carts, heavy river current, and jagged rocks. It is a brutal, close-quarters street fight. The fish knows its territory. The moment it feels the hook, it will immediately dive for the sharpest rock or try to wrap your line around the nearest concrete pillar. You have to be aggressive. This is not the time for delicate tackle. You need heavy braided line and a stiff rod with plenty of backbone. You have to turn the head of the fish immediately and force it out into the open water. You are pulling backward, your boots slipping slightly on the muddy rocks, the roar of the cars echoing around you. It is pure adrenaline. There is no calm, peaceful nature here. It is a chaotic, intense battle between you and a creature that has grown strong, fighting the heavy river current every single day of its life. You slowly gain line, cranking the handle through the heavy resistance. Finally, you see a massive flash of silver near the surface. It is a beautiful, thick, heavy fish. You carefully guide it past the last set of jagged rocks and slide your net under it. You lift it onto the bank. It is the biggest catch you have had all season. You look up at the bridge. The cars are still rushing by. Nobody up there has any idea what just happened down here in the shadows. You unhook the fish, take a quick photo for your buddies, who are probably still sitting at that silent lake, catching absolutely nothing, and you slip the fish back into the water. As you watch it swim back into the dark depths around the pillar, you realize something profound. Everything you were taught about finding a peaceful, pristine wilderness to catch good fish was a lie. Fish do not care about aesthetics. They do not care about a beautiful view. They adapt to whatever environment gives them the best chance to survive and eat. And in a modern urban environment, human infrastructure often provides better habitat than nature itself. You just prove the old myths completely wrong. Let us address the psychological barrier that stops most people from doing this. Fishing has always been marketed to us as a peaceful escape. We see magazine covers of lone anglers in canoes on foggy, mirror-like waters, surrounded by pine trees. We want that peace. When you tell a fisherman to go stand under Interstate 95, their brain rejects the idea immediately. It feels dirty. It feels industrial. It feels like you are not really fishing. You might feel self-conscious, worrying that people driving by are judging you. You have to swallow your pride to fish in the concrete jungle. You have to accept that your boots might get dirty from city grime, not forest mud. You have to accept the noise, the smell of hot asphalt, and the occasional piece of floating trash. But once you break through that mental barrier, a whole new world opens up to you. You suddenly realize that there is untouched, unpressured water right in the middle of your daily commute. While everyone else is driving past this spot to reach the crowded lake outside of town, you have this incredibly productive honey hole all to yourself. Have you ever thought about what happens when it rains? Rain is another factor that makes bridge fishing absolutely incredible. During a heavy downpour, water washes off the streets, down the embankments, and directly into the river around the bridge. This runoff carries worms, bugs, and other tasty morsels right into the water. It creates a muddy, nutrient-rich plume in the river. Fish love this muddy water. It provides them with cover to hunt aggressively. Moreover, while other fishermen are getting completely soaked and packing up their gear to go home, you are sitting completely dry. The massive highway bridge acts as a giant concrete umbrella. You can sit comfortably in your folding chair, drinking your coffee, staying perfectly dry while a thunderstorm rages around you. You are fishing in prime, highly active conditions, and you do not even need to put on a raincoat. It is the ultimate hack for bad weather fishing. The bridge provides shelter for the fish, and it provides shelter for you. It is a huge win for everybody involved, except maybe the fish you are about to catch. Let us shift our focus to night fishing under a highway. If you think the bridge is good during the day, you will be blown away by what happens after the sun goes down. Most highway bridges are illuminated by massive streetlights to keep the drivers safe. These bright lights shine down and cast a heavy glare onto the surface of the water. This artificial lighting changes the entire dynamic of the river. Light attracts bugs. The bugs swarm around the glowing lamps and eventually fall into the water. The light also attracts huge schools of tiny bait fish who gather in the illuminated zones to feed on the plankton and insects. You will see them flickering on the surface like silver coins, and just outside that ring of light, lurking in the pitch-black shadows, are the big predators. They wait in the dark, completely invisible, watching the brightly lit buffet in front of them. When a bait fish makes a wrong move, the predator strikes violently and vanishes back into the darkness. It is an organized, high-speed hunting ground created entirely by city streetlights. When you are fishing this night bite, your strategy has to adapt to the light lines. You do not want to cast directly into the center of the bright light. That is where the small fish are. Instead, you want to cast your lure into the total darkness and slowly reel it back toward the light. You want to drag your bait right across that edge where the shadow meets the illumination. That transition zone is the strike zone. It is a magical boundary. As soon as your lure crosses from the dark into the light, it gets absolutely hammered. The hits you get at night under a bridge are aggressive and angry. The fish are not cautiously inspecting the bait. They are reacting on pure instinct to a silhouette moving into the kill zone. And the best part? The noise from the highway is still there, masking your presence, masking your footsteps, and masking the splash of your cast. You can catch big, wary fish that would normally be impossible to fool in a quiet, dark lake. The city infrastructure is literally doing all the hard work of gathering the fish right at your feet. There is another secret to the concrete bridge that few anglers ever talk about. It is the concept of funneling. Rivers are naturally wide, and fish can spread out over massive areas. But when engineers build a bridge, they often narrow the river channel with dirt and rock embankments to make the span shorter and cheaper to build. This artificial narrowing forces the entire volume of the river through a much tighter space. What happens when you force a large amount of water through a small opening? The current speeds up. This creates a natural funnel. Every single piece of food, every bait fish, and every wandering predator must pass through this specific choke point. You are no longer searching a giant body of water, hoping to cross paths with a fish. You have found the toll booth. Every fish moving up or down the river has to swim past those concrete pillars. By positioning yourself at this choke point, you are maximizing your chances of an encounter. You are letting the physics of the altered river bring the fish directly to your hook. It is a brilliant way to fish smarter, not harder. Now let us talk about the kind of gear you need to bring to this concrete battlefield. Leave your delicate, expensive rods at home. This is not the place for finesse fishing. You will be scraping your gear against concrete, dropping it on rocks, and dealing with heavy, abusive conditions. Bring a tough, medium-heavy rod that can take a beating. Use heavy fluorocarbon leaders because the rocks and rusted metal under the water will slice through thin line like a hot knife through butter. You need to be prepared to lose tackle. Bring extra weights, extra hooks, and extra lures. Think of them as the price of admission. If you are not getting snagged on the bottom occasionally, you are not fishing close enough to the structure where the big ones live. Do not be afraid to throw big, loud, obnoxious lures. A spinnerbait with huge blades or a crankbait with a loud rattle works wonders here. Remember, You are competing with the vibration of semi-trucks. You need a lure that moves a lot of water and makes a lot of noise, so the fish can locate it in the chaotic environment. I want you to imagine a conversation with that old-school fisherman, the one who taught you to whisper on the bank. You run into him at the local bait shop on a Sunday morning. He asks you where you are heading. He is packing up his truck to drive 50 miles to a secluded state park. He tells you the bite has been tough because the water is too warm and the fish are easily spooked. You tell him you're just going down the street to the interstate overpass. He chuckles. He gives you that condescending smile and wishes you luck, catching old boots and rusty tires. You just smile back. You do not try to convince him. Let him drive an hour away. Let him tiptoe around the muddy banks in absolute silence, sweating in the blazing sun, praying for a single bite. You know exactly what awaits you. You know about the cool shade. You know about the funnel effect. You know about the ambush points behind the pillars. You know that while he is struggling to catch a small bass in a silent forest, you will be wrestling a monster out of the roaring concrete jungle. There is a unique beauty to this kind of urban fishing. Once you learn to actually see it, it is raw, it is gritty, and it requires a completely different kind of observation. You start reading the city the way a tracker reads the forest. You look at how the rainwater drains off a parking lot and dumps into the river, creating a perfect mud line. You look at where the streetlights cast their shadows on the surface. You notice the slight swirl in the water behind a shopping cart that has been stuck in the mud for 3 years. You realize that nature always finds a way to adapt. The fish do not care that humans poured thousands of tons of concrete into their living room. They just adapted. They turned our highways into their feeding grounds. And as an angler, you have to do the exact same thing. You have to adapt. You have to stop holding on to this romantic idea of what fishing is supposed to look like in a painting and start looking at what fishing actually is in the real, modern world. When you stop fighting the urban environment and start using it, your catch rate will absolutely explode. Of course, we must talk about safety when fishing near these structures. Highway bridges can be dangerous places if you are not paying close attention. The banks are often steep and covered in loose, slippery rocks. The water current moving between the pillars can be incredibly strong and full of nasty undertows. You should never try to wade too far out into these funnel areas. Wear sturdy, non-slip boots with good ankle support. Leave the flip-flops at home. Be aware of your surroundings, both in the water and on the bank. Sometimes these areas attract less than savory characters, so it is always a good idea to fish with a buddy during the night hours. Pay attention to the weather upriver. Because the bridge creates a funnel, a sudden release of water from a dam upstream can cause the water level under the bridge to rise very rapidly. Always have a clear escape route back up the bank. Safety in these urban zones is just about common sense and staying alert. Treat the environment with respect, understand the hazards, and focus on extracting those massive fish hiding in the shadows. So, the next time you have a free morning and you want to catch fish, stop and think before you automatically drive away from the city. Look at a map of your town. Find where the biggest, busiest, ugliest roads cross over the local river or lake. That is your new target. Embrace the noise. Embrace the ugly concrete. Pack your heaviest gear and prepare for a completely different kind of fight. You are going to step out of your vehicle, hear the deafening roar of the traffic, smell the exhaust, and you are going to smile. Because you now know the secret that 99% of other fishermen refuse to accept. You know that absolute silence is a complete myth. You know that fish absolutely love the chaotic, structured, food-rich environment of a major bridge. You are ready to break the old rules. You are bold enough to fish right next to the noisy highway, and you are going to pull absolute giants out from under the wheels of the passing trucks. The concrete jungle is calling, and it is time for you to answer. Go cast a line into the noise and see what bites back. To wrap things up, today we broke down the biggest myth in fishing. The turning point is realizing that fish do not want the peace and quiet that we want. They want food, oxygen, and structure. And a loud, ugly highway bridge provides all three perfectly. This completely changes your approach because you no longer need to waste gas driving hours to a silent lake just to get skunked. The monsters are waiting right in your own backyard, hiding in the shadows of the concrete jungle. Thank you so much for watching and being open to breaking the old school rules. If this video changed how you look at urban fishing, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever caught a monster fish in a loud, ugly, urban spot? Or are you still chasing the silent lakes? Drop your story in the comments and let us start a discussion.